Hello and welcome to video 3 of 10 in my Python 3 crash course. I know it's been a while since I last uploaded, but I'm back. In this video, we're going to be talking about control flow. Control flow is a very broad topic in Python, which is why it needs its own video. So let's start off by actually defining what control flow is. So normally, code runs from top to bottom, right? Line by line. But with control flow, you can control the order of what lines run and when. You can even control whether they actually run or not. So let's go ahead and look at an example here. I have 3 lines of code in a Python file, right? 1 to 3. Each one prints its own statement. So let's run our code and look at what happens. As you can see, it prints the 3 statements in order from top to bottom, meaning that they go from line 1 to line 2 to line 3. So by the end of this video, you should be able to know how to modify the order in which the code runs. Alright, so to use control flow, let's actually talk about the primary data type used in control flow. This data type is called a Boolean. A Boolean just has 2 values, true or false. It's as simple as that. So to show you, let me create a variable and assign a Boolean to it. So my Boolean equals true. Now for these true and false values in a Boolean, the first letter must always be capitalized in order for Python to register it as a Boolean. When I put in lowercase letters, as you can see, it just throws an error at me and tries to tell me that I should put quotation marks around it to make it a string. But really, Booleans don't need quotation marks. And Python will know that once you capitalize the first letter. So let's go ahead and print this variable. Run our code, and it prints true. Now let's try false. And it prints false. Now that we know what a Boolean value is, we can now look at comparison operators. A comparison operator compares 2 values. So in total, there are 6 different comparison operators. Let's look at them one by one. So first, I'm going to create a variable called x and set it equal to 5. And then I'm going to write a print statement and write x equals 5. So I wrote 2 equal signs back to back and put a 5. This might look like a mistake, but it's really not. The 2 equal signs mean that you are comparing x and 5 to see if they are equal or not. So basically, if x and 5 are equal, then it will return true. Otherwise, it will return false. So let's go ahead and run our code. And as you can see, it prints true because x does in fact equal 5. Now let's go ahead and try x exclamation mark equals 6. So the difference between the second operator and the first one up here is that this operator means not equals. So basically this operator checks to see if x doesn't equal 6, and if it doesn't, then it equates to true, but does equal to 6, then it prints false. So basically this operator is just the reverse of this operator. So let's go ahead and comment this out and let's print, and as you can see, it returns true because x just doesn't equal 6. Now let's go ahead and look at another one. Print x is greater than 5. So this one is a pretty familiar one. Basically, this is the greater than sign. It checks to see if x is greater than 5. Or I already used 5, let's try 2. It checks to see if x is greater than 2. And if it is, prints true. If it's not, prints false. So comment this out and run. And it prints true because x is greater than 2. Now, let's try the other one. You can already guess what this is. X is less than, and let's do 3. So, the less than operator checks if x is less than 3. And if it is, then prints true. If it's not, it prints false. Basically, it's the reverse of the greater than symbol. So let's go ahead and print it. And I forgot to comment this out. Let's go ahead and print it, and it prints false right here because x is not less than 3. Now let's comment this out and look at our 5th operator. The final two might also be pretty familiar to you, and this one is x is greater than or equal to. So basically, it checks to see if x is greater than or equal to 1. If it is equal, it'll print true. If it's greater than 1, it'll also print true. However, if it is less than 1, then it will print false. So let's go ahead and run our code here. As you can see, it prints true because x is in fact greater than 5, so it satisfies one of the two criteria. Let's go ahead and comment this out as well, and let's print our final comparison operator. This one, you can probably guess it, is less than or equal to. And let's go with 9. So basically, this checks if x is less than or equal to 9. If it's less than 9, prints true. If it's equal to 9, it also prints true. But if it is greater than 9, then it just prints false. So let's go ahead, run our code. And this also prints true because it satisfies one of the two criteria. Okay, so now that we know what comparison operators are and what booleans are, we can get into the basics of control flow. So let's start with if statements. So I already created a variable called x and set it equal to 7 to show you and how an if statement works. So let's start by using the keyword if, and then we're gonna write a comparison statement here that uses a comparison operator. So let's go with x is less than 5, and we're gonna finish that line with a colon, and then on the next line we have an indentation, and then we're gonna write down what we want to execute if x is actually less than 5. So let's go with print x is less than 5, right? And now we're gonna run our code, and it just doesn't do anything because this is because x is less than 5 is not actually true because x is equal to 7. Now let's set x to 4 so that this comparison statement is actually true. Running our code, we get x is less than 5. This means that it actually executed the code because it checked to see if x was less than 5 and it evaluated it as true. Alright, so now let's get into else statements. An else statement lets you write a code that you want to run if the statement is not true. So let's go ahead and write our else statement here. We're gonna write else, and then we're gonna write a colon, and then we're gonna hit enter for the next line, And don't forget to add an indentation. It should automatically put one in for you, but if it doesn't, make sure to indent. Otherwise, it will not know that the code is part of the if-else statement. So now we're gonna write what we want to run if the statement is not true. So let's write print x is not less than 5. And we're gonna run our code. And it writes x is less than 5, right? Because the statement is true. Now let's put an example if our thing is not true. Run our code, and it prints the other statement. Because this was false, it skipped over this statement and moved on to the else statement and printed out our other string. Now let's get into if, elif, and else statements. So we already learned what if is, what else is, and now we're gonna learn what elif is. So I'm gonna delete all of this because to show you how this works, I'm gonna need a brand new scenario. And let's go with you need to be a teenager to use something. You need to be a teenager to use a specific app for school. So let's go ahead and create a variable called age and set it equal to 16. Now let's start our if statement by checking if the person is greater than 18 years old. Or yeah, 18 years old. Right, and then let's print. If this is true, let's print you cannot use this application. And now let's use elif. So we're gonna use our elif keyword, and we're gonna write another comparison. If age is greater than 12 and age is less than 18, then print you can use this application. So this right here is another keyword that we'll get into after we look at the basics of control flow. And finally, else. And let's do you can't use this application you are too young. Good. So now we have an if statement, an elif statement, and an else statement. So when you would use an elif statement is if you want to check more than one thing. So here, not only are we checking if they're greater than 18, but we are also checking if they are a teenager. And so it will check all these parameters and it'll figure out what it needs to actually execute. So let's go ahead and run our code, and it prints you can use this application. So let's go through the process of what it actually did here. So our age is 16, right? And if and then it checks to see if 16 is greater than 18, but that's false. So it moves on to the next elif, and it checks if age is greater than 12 and if it is less than 18. And if it is, then it executes this. And that's how it got to this statement. But if it weren't, then it would have moved on to the else statement and finally executed this. So for if statements, you can chain together as many as you need to. You could have if and then 2 if statements and then an else, or you can have if and then 50 if statements and then an else. It doesn't matter how many you have. And you don't even have to end with an else statement. You don't actually need this. It will still work just fine, and it will still print. You can use this application. It's just that if you don't have an else statement and none of the statements are true, then it just won't do anything. Alright, now that we know what we need to know about control flow, let's finish off with a little challenge. So basically what you have to do is create a variable and just put in a number, and then you have to check if it is positive, negative, or 0, and then print whatever it is. So I'll let you pause the video and try it out on your own. Okay, and we're back. So now I'm gonna solve this, and you can follow along if you weren't able to get it, or you can check your work. So I'm gonna start by creating a variable called number, and let's set it equal to 6. It could have been anything though. And let's start off with an if statement that checks if number is greater than 0. If it is, then we're just gonna print positive. Next, if we're gonna check, why did I write check? We're gonna check if number is less than 0. And if it is, we're just gonna print negative. And we're gonna finish off with one more if, and we're gonna check if number is equal to 0. If it is, then we're just gonna print 0. And it's as simple as that. Just if and then 2 if statements. We don't need an else statement after that because we already have ifs here. So let's go ahead and run our code, and it prints positive because 6 is positive. Let's put 0. It prints 0 because 0 is 0. And finally, let's do -7. Prints negative because -7 is of course negative. So that was the solution to the problem. Let me know if you got it in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe if you did, and write a comment below if you have any suggestions or questions, and I will answer them, or someone else who is experienced will answer them. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.